Welcome back to this week's Bible study recap. So the first week we talked about discipline, second week humility, and this week we're going to look at integrity. So you may ask, what is integrity? So by definition, integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles and moral uprightness. So how does that tie into who Daniel is? Our focus verse we are going to look at will be Romans 12:2, and this is going to be coming from the New Living Translation. So it says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." So to summarize the story, King Nebuchadnezzar had a giant gold statue built of himself and gave orders for everyone in the kingdom to bow down and to worship it at appointed times. And so anybody who refused to do that was commanded to be thrown into a fiery furnace. And so Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego weren't going to bow down to anyone or anything except the true living God. And so they were not going to follow those orders by the king. So now we're going to look at some more scripture, and we're going to look at Daniel chapter 3, verses 16 through 18. And it reads, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, 'O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up.'" So Daniel and his three friends showed integrity because they did not follow the king's orders. They had enough faith and trust in God that he will be able to rescue them. And we have to be the same way. We have to make sure we have enough faith and trust in God to know that he will rescue us whenever we need him. So one key thing that I do want to point out in this story is that in verse 18 it says, "But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you that we will never, ever worship your gods or the gold statue you have set up." So wow, how many of us today can say, when faced with struggles or difficulties of our own, that we can truly look at the circumstances and say, you know, Lord, even if you don't save us or get us out of this situation, you've already done enough, and we will still have faith and trust in you. So there are going to be many times when our culture dictates behaviors that are contradictory to the Bible or to biblical standards. And so a few examples of those will be, profanity, sex outside of marriage, and greed. And that's just to name a few. But when culture conflicts with character, we have the opportunity to live with integrity. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about King Nebuchadnezzar and his order. So he ordered for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be thrown into the fiery furnace. He wanted it heated up 7 times harder than its normal heat that it would be. So they will be thrown in. So he gets them tied up, hands tied, they can't get loose, gets them to be thrown in. It's so hot that it burns up the soldiers that throw them in there. And so he's looking in there and he's like, "Didn't I throw in 3 men? But I see 4. And so God came to rescue and to save Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fiery furnace. And so what faith and what hope did they have to have in order to realize, that their God would come save and come and rescue them. So just some encouragement today, if you're feeling like, you're just down in the trenches and you don't know what to do, if you're needing some encouragement, just always remember that we do serve a God, and we have a God who will always be there to help us along the way. But even if he doesn't pull us out of our situation or our struggle, he is still good and he is still a great God. So I encourage you to tune in with us next week for our next Bible study recap.